Hello and welcome to today's episode. So you may have noticed that the person on the top of my screen has more hair than my usual host. Sorry, Rowan. I have a guest today, and I have Tom. I have followed Tom for quite a while actually, and he has risen to the top and he's living the absolute dream. But I'm not going to kind of blow any more smoke up his ass, so he can introduce himself. Over to you, mate.
Hey guys, you're right. So my name is Tom. Like Alex said, we've been following each other for a while now. I have come from a personal training background as well. So I was doing in-person training in the gym. Like every online coach, to be fair, when lockdown hit, everyone moved online. So I followed the crowd, and that is my main full-time job now. So I'm out in Bali at the minute doing some traveling, living here for 4 months, and just working online like we all do.
Living the dream. So any online coaches out there, go and follow Tom. He literally does kind of live the life that is pretty much sold to most online coaches. But the reality is that most of us don't actually live like that. Tom is the only person I know. Actually, I know another person, my mate Ross. He is the only person I know who's doing it from another country. So absolutely, hats off to you. You're absolutely nailing it. So in today's pod, we're going to kind of be doing a Q&A. So Tom had a kind of Q&A box on his story and he got some decent questions. And we're also going to kind of touch on a few points because obviously this is going out on my platforms. So you kind of know what I'm about, and my mindset around things and my kind of approach to nutrition training and what we're here for, like growing muscle, losing fat, and a little sprinkle of nutrition in there as well. When Tom potentially comes from kind of a different sector of fitness. So we thought it'd be a really good kind of comparison and see where we might potentially clash on things, or if we actually can find like a common ground. I'm not saying I don't like him, but you get this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it doesn't make it to the air, you know why. Right then, mate. So let's open up with one of your questions because some of them are good. So which one do you want to run with first?
Yeah, so the main one that come through that I wanted to talk about, which I think we probably both deal with clients that have this problem as well. So the first one is losing centimeters on the tape measure, but scale stay the same, saying borderline obese with BMI. So I'll touch on it first if you want, and we can just obviously discuss as we go. So this is like a really, really big thing that I see with my clients as well. So when we get someone in a calorie deficit, get them moving more, obviously the goal is to lose body fat. And a lot of people have come from the mindset that losing body fat is seeing the scales go down. But the big thing we need to understand with this is like weight loss and fat loss are very, very different. Weight is made up of obviously body fat, muscle, bones, water. And when we look at fat loss, obviously that's just the amount of fat you're losing. So when it comes to like losing fat, you think you're doing everything correctly. The centimeters are going down. So obviously you're getting smaller, but the scales are either staying the same or going up. This can be down to a few reasons. Like I said, you've probably gone through it with clients before.
100%. I think like BMI as a metric is pretty terrible. Like I can understand why the kind of like health system uses it because they need something to be able to track everyone with when you go for your health checkups and stuff like that. But like you can literally, I could impact my BMI in 24 hours by 2 categories. All I'd have to do was just fast and dehydrate, and I would then go from I am classed as obese because I'm quite heavy. I could influence that kind of metric into a 24-hour period. So it is a tricky one because like glycogen, water, like you said, and are you always going to be losing quote unquote body fat on the scale? Probably not. And is your BMI ever going to make you happy? Like that's one thing I would always ask on that question. Like, what are you actually doing that for? Like if it is to lose body fat, yes, scale weight is one data point that we're going to track, but you need to compare that against lots of other data points because Was it a male or a female that asked the
It was a
question?
female. It was a
So
female.
like, if we're coming from potentially like an untrained position, there is a chance that you could be growing some muscle
Yeah,
whilst
100%.
losing body fat, which would then just counteract the scale. Um,
That's yeah, that's what I talk about a lot with my clients as well, because the people I coach usually come from a beginner background, and when they approach resistance training, they start lifting weights. They will build a bit of muscle, especially with a good program which focuses on progressive overload. They're starting to eat more protein and they're gaining muscle and also losing body fat because we have them in a calorie deficit. Like you said, it's going to contradict. And that's why someone's weight can stay the same, but they obviously look smaller because muscle mass is more dense than body fat. So
exactly. And like the power
yeah,
of recomposition is like, especially in those first few years of training, like the actual, like the honeymoon period, like everyone wishes they could go back there and just do it properly. Um, because literally magic happens. Like you can gain muscle, lose fat at the same time, which realistically you're not probably not going to do again after that kind of
yeah,
initial phase of starting the gym. So to answer that question, because I know like as with every podcast, you never actually answer the question. You just kind of talk around the question. I would ditch a BMI unless it's kind of come from a practitioner, like your doctor's saying like you need to improve your BMI. Because of course, like in the hierarchy of fitness, like a doctor comes before us. So go listen to your doctor, and then don't take too much advice from us. But then I'd be thinking like you said, don't just get married to one data point, because I can attest to this with clients and myself, like coming from a prep, like I was pretty much obsessed with scale weight. And
yeah,
that's even with my mindset of knowing that scale weight isn't everything, but it's
yeah,
very easy to, because it becomes most of the time, and if you're tracking every day, it becomes the first thing you do when you wake up. You go
yeah,
do your
yeah,
stuff in the bathroom, you go and weigh yourself. And it can, speaking from experience, like impact your day,
yeah,
which is a tricky one, because like it's not a great thing to admit, because it is just a number on a scale, and like we've said, there's so much that affects it. Like you could
yeah,
drink like a liter less water the day before and wake up lighter, or wake up heavier if you've had more sodium and potassium. So
yeah,
I'd start looking at like you would with your clients, like comparing more data points, like checking photos is so key. And
yeah,
I think once people get over the initial fear of kind of sending a photo to their coach, it's probably the best thing, because
yeah,
for a lot of my clients now, I'll move completely away from scale weight, especially my female clients,
yeah,
because it can kind of become quite unhealthy.
yeah.
And some of my
And
male clients as well.
yeah, like you were saying with yourself jumping on the scales, I think a lot of coaches put content out about not worrying about scale weight and don't let it affect you. But you can say all that and then jump on the scales yourself. And if you see it's gone up, it does affect you in some way. Like it is a little bit disheartening when you do see an extra kg, but you're doing everything that you should be.
Yeah.
So like you said, it is a good like data to collect if you're doing it. I do it with my clients twice per week. So one on a Wednesday, one on a Sunday. And it's just good to have the data there so we know how everything is going. And obviously, if the scale is coming down, we know they are probably dropping body fat.
Hmm.
Like that's given. Um, but there are some other things you can do, like progress pictures, like measurements, and then some other things as well, which come away from all of it is just how you're feeling, how's your energy levels, are people commenting on you, are you noticing things as well?
Are you enjoying it? Like,
Yeah, main
are you
thing. Yeah,
actually enjoying what we're doing, or like, are you just becoming like, again, like, just are you just not enjoying what you're doing because
yeah.
you're waking up weighing yourself and it's making you feel like crap? Like, just
What's the point? Yeah,
what is the point? Because it's process orientated and goal on end goal orientated. Like, we need to decide what we want and what we need to actually give our attention to. And this is where I think like having a coach will help a lot, because if you did this on your own, potentially you would just get inside your own head, um,
yeah, yeah,
and you'd be like, right, you've got no one like objectively saying like what we've just discussed, like there's all of these
yeah,
other factors, like all right, this week we're not going to track your weight at all, because I can see from back here, like from watching you check in and your voice, your tone of voice, that you're not happy when the scale goes up. So I'm going to make
Yeah.
the decision as your coach, not like a dictator, but like, right,
Advisory.
let's move away from that now because I can see it's unhealthy. Like, of
Yeah.
course, if you want to as a client still do it, you can, but I'm gonna like recommend that we just move over to different ways of tracking.
Yeah.
And I think like you said, it is important, but it's not everything. And like, I
I
think it's
think a
just
lot
sorry,
of
carry
people
on.
would I think a lot of people would give up when they do see that £1 or £2 going up. And like you said, if you don't have a coach telling you like it's okay, don't worry, we can focus on other things for now, a lot of people would stop there when they do see that scale weight going up.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it
in
links.
short,
It can be seen in like Christmas as well, like
yeah,
quite because like on probability, like weight's going to go up on Christmas. Like it just happened. Like that. Like
it'd be stupid if it didn't. It'd be stupid if it didn't. Like
yeah,
you've done it
exactly.
wrong.
Like cheese boards, like chocolate boxes, like everything's just stacked against us. And unless you're like me, where like willpower is just like I'm just like actual just straight on the line. Like nothing goes in my mouth that I don't want. um, it's
Or
just
even Christmas, yeah.
yeah, even Christmas, mate. Absolute robot. Well, to be fair, I can't eat anything anyway with my digestive system at the moment. So,
Uh,
um, yeah. So I think like you said, like scale weight's going to go up at Christmas. So we need to kind of be in a good place with scale weight in terms of how we feel about it, because otherwise, like that's when Christmas kind of snowballs into like just like long-term weight gain because you
no,
get emotional about the scale going up and then you're like, do you know what, like F this, I'm not doing it, like
yeah,
all or nothing. When realistically, like you said, like as long as you know that person's in a calorie deficit, they're eating permissive protein, they're in a good nitrogen balance, things are going to happen over a month, over a 2 month period. And then it comes back to like be realistic with like where you are at in your journey and what you can actually achieve.
yeah,
But I think
yeah,
that's kind of
definitely.
moving into like a whole
And the
different.
whole thing, like obviously bringing up a new topic, but the whole thing with like you said about going into Christmas, obviously that is coming around the corner, so it would be a good thing to obviously just talk about briefly. Um, but I took my clients through like a little webinar the other day about going into Christmas, and I mentioned about like if we expect it now that you are going to gain weight, it won't feel as bad. Like that sounds a bit weird, but we see the process. A lot of people going out for social events, work events, the 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year, they gain 3 to 5 kg maybe. And then the cycle would start from January with the whole restrictive diet, going very low calorie, a New Year's resolution to run every single day. And when you are a beginner to all of this, it's going to spiral down that vicious cycle of losing weight, regaining it, losing it, regaining it. And like you said, at Christmas is the time where a lot of people like dive off into this cycle of gaining a lot of weight, and they try to contradict it by a very restrictive diet, and then it goes back to the weight gain, back to restrictive diet, and that will happen.
It does happen. Like I see it all the time. Like clients will return in January and be like, look, it's all gone wrong at Christmas. I shouldn't have left you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so like it's a tricky one because like you at the end of it, like I know this is moving away from the original question, but we're on the
yeah,
topic of Christmas. Like Christmas is a tricky one, I think, from a coach because lots of clients will say they still want a diet and they still want to be losing body fat over Christmas. Um, and I would obviously support the client whatever they want, but like for lots of my guys and girls that are dieting, we've just worked on creating like a little bit of a buffer before the
yeah,
Christmas period because this November time, like not much is happening. Like
no,
we're all waiting for that Christmas kind of right. We've got time off. We can go to Christmas markets. All of the mulled wine is out, and bring out the
yeah,
cheese boards. So if we can create a bit of a buffer now, I say buffer. I don't say like right. We're just going to absolutely plummet calories. I just say right. If you're not doing any cardio, we could potentially do a little bit more cardio. If you're
yeah,
doing some steps, we could increase those by like 2-3K, and we could start thinking about potentially dropping a kilogram or 2 kilograms before the Christmas period. But then as a coach, you don't know whether like you're feeding that anxiety around Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like that's what
Oh,
I'm finding myself in at the moment. Like, do I want to be saying to clients like, right, okay, you're worried about Christmas. Let's create a little bit of a buffer so you can gain weight over Christmas, or do you just keep them on their current trajectory? They do gain weight at Christmas and then they're unhappy. So like
yeah.
I think that's where like checking in like weekly and like having calls with my clients like helps a lot, because like I can really gauge like what they actually want. Because
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd think about that, because like mine's a little bit more cutthroat in my approach with my clients, and their
Yeah.
mentality is a little bit different potentially to kind of your demographic. So how would you approach that? Because I know you're big on like relationships with food and
Yeah.
social occasions. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So everyone who's listening, me and Alex actually spoke a little bit before about how we coach different people. So my approach and the clients I coach are more beginners trying to get basic habits in place, and you're a little bit more prep, getting shredded.
Yeah,
Sort
growing
of.
muscle, losing fat, kind of,
Yeah.
and all things in between, really. But less
Yeah.
beginner based, I'd say, kind of less starting off, where they're a little bit later in their fitness journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, like you were saying with the whole Christmas approach, and like I was saying before, I took my clients for a little webinar, and we'll have one-to-one calls before it this weekend. But like you were saying about coaching clients on a one-to-one basis, it allows you the opportunity to speak to them individually and find out what they want to do, because some people will come from the mindset of needing to keep body fat off over Christmas. Others won't mind relaxing a little bit. So I think it's a case of like, obviously, so what I would do is discuss with them what they want to do, and then we can go from there, and I can put some targets in place for them as of then. I've given them the option to keep tracking if they want to, obviously not on Christmas Day, but around it, or take 2 weeks off, relax a little bit. But here's some methods you can do to make sure it isn't going to spiral down a lot of weight gain. So obviously like high protein, trying to prioritize veggies,
Yeah.
water intake, fiber intake, going out for walks and increasing steps, but without tracking calories. So they do get that option of just relaxing for a couple of weeks over Christmas. And then obviously going into January, not having to drop calories, just going back to usual targets. And we know that weight gain, coming back to the first question actually about like
It seems
weight
like
gain.
yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. We know that obviously weight gain over a 2 week period, unless you've gone mental, probably isn't going to be body fat. It's going to be a collection of water retention, more food inside of you, and stuff like that, which can be easily reversed going back to normal targets. Because again, with the scale weight, a lot of people think it is body fat, but realistically, it would be very hard to gain body fat unless you went mental, like I was saying, which can be done over Christmas, by the way. Don't worry if you have gained body fat over Christmas, which can be done over a 1 or 2 week period.
Yeah, I think like, yeah, exactly. And I think like you said about giving the client full autonomy over their decision around that period. Like, again, it needs to be client centered, and they really need to be making the decisions. And we as coaches just say, right, this is what I would do. This is what you could do. And support them in that, because some of my guys and girls that are dieting, because I've planned in the phases, they'll be on a diet break over Christmas,
Yeah.
which will mean they'll have slightly more food. And if anything, that kind of flips the switch from kind of, right, this food's detrimental to my diet. Oh, now it's actually factored into my long-term phase structure.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find with my guys and girls, like planning and them seeing a plan really helps. And it's probably the same for your guys and girls as well. Like just knowing where you sit in what you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, if that thing you're trying to achieve is so far away, Christmas can be that massive, like that kind of hurdle that's potentially and has been before that is too much. Like it's just that thing that knocks you off. But I think we've absolutely beaten up that question and gone off like an absolute festive.
Yeah, I was going to say. They're probably in. Hang on, you haven't actually answered it.
No, I'm gonna have to watch it back, and if we haven't, I have to give you another call.
Yeah. Cool, yeah,
what did you have for question 2?
So the next one was getting protein sources and hitting a protein target as a vegan without supplementing. So with this one, I wanted to touch on it about the whole supplementing thing, because I think people think like protein supplements are a bad thing to have. But as a vegan, as a vegetarian, I would take full advantage over, obviously, what is it, like soy protein they can have. So like supplementing that in, having shakes, having protein bars, like supplementing protein into your diet isn't a bad thing. A lot of people would look at it as like, I don't know, like steroids or like a drug or something like that. But as
Just
a vegan,
definitely not the same.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, like as a vegan, I would take full advantage over supplementing it in. I wouldn't worry about not doing that.
100%. I think like, especially with like veganism and kind of vegetarianism, if that's a thing, just made it up.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I think that's a word. Yeah, don't know, bleep it out. You need it adds a complexity, okay? Like, because if you're looking at kind of the makeups of protein, you have complete and incomplete. And the bottom line is that complete protein mainly comes from animal sources. So as a vegan, you're not going to do that ethically or from a health standpoint. That's absolutely fine, but it does add a level of complexity that you probably do need to think about, because when we're looking at complete proteins, it's a good amount of essential amino acids, whereas incomplete proteins in vegetables, fruit, mainly vegetables, legumes, stuff like that, nuts, they're incomplete. So by incomplete, it means they haven't got certain amounts of the essential amino acids. So
to be honest, I think you know more about this than me. But is the one that, if you were like a vegan vegetarian, it's very hard to get leucine, is it, from plant-based?
Yes, lots of, yeah, there's a few, but I think leucine is one of the main ones. So that's where you need to pair your, this is where it can, there's a rabbit hole you can go down here. Like, because in my world, and if I had a vegan client, I'd be pairing their protein sources. And I'd be looking at the essential amino acid profile of those protein sources and pairing them with one that's higher in certain things. You'd pair with one that's higher in other things. So therefore, together, they would make a complete protein. But in terms of the supplementation, like, it could be done for you, because I know a lot of the vegan supplements, if you buy a good quality one, will pair vegan sources like pea, soy, what's the other one? Rice. And they'll combine them together so that that protein source is complete. Because if we're looking at kind of resistance-based training and why we're eating a high protein diet, we're eating it to mitigate any muscle protein breakdown. We're trying to spike MPS, muscle protein synthesis. Go on, that's a mouthful. And we need it to be a complete source to do that. So I'd get the supplements in, mate, because I have coached people who are vegans, and it is tough if you're not supplementing, because you've got to eat a lot of food. You've got to eat a lot of beans and stuff.
When the goal is fat loss, then comes like all the calories as well. When you're trying to hit,
because beans are high calorie. Like if you have like 200 grams of beans, you're looking at over potentially like 300 calories. And it's the issue that you run into if it is a fat loss phase is that although we're viewing those beans as a protein source, they're not just protein at all. They're probably matched with carbs. So if there's 10 grams of protein, there's probably 20 grams of carbs in that protein serving. So you definitely need to kind of approach it with quite a cool head and get something that's like beans on toast is probably not going to cut it. Like I know I had a few vegan mates at uni and it was like, oh, I'm vegan, I'm being healthy, I'm eating beans on toast. It's like, yeah, beans on toast is good, like one meal a week, but like probably not going to be like optimal in terms of growing muscle in the long run. But
like you said, with the whole like vegan vegetarian thing, just because it is harder to hit your protein intake, it doesn't mean that you just shouldn't focus on it. Because obviously we know that protein is the king of macros for resistance training, building muscle, and fat loss as well, coming from
satiation.
Increased thermic effect of food, which is obviously more calories expended through breakdown, digestion of food. So we know that that should be something that is focused on like probably at the top of the factors,
I'll agree.
alongside of calories, undercalories. But yeah, just because it is harder, it doesn't mean you should be focused on it. And like you
100%.
said,
Yeah. And
can
like,
get
sorry, like if that person has made that choice to be vegan, that's something they're just going to have to accept. Like it's going to be a little bit harder for them, but
yeah,
that comes along with that moral decision
yeah,
or
yeah,
health decision that you've made, which is absolutely fine because you're completely within your right to do it. And I credit like, well done. Like
yeah,
I wish I could do it. I can. But yeah, I think like you just need to understand that that's part and parcel of your decision to become a vegan, I'm afraid. But like
yeah,
you said, just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't do it, because
yeah,
it'll be hard at the start. And once you get over that friction, a year down the line, you'll be like, I can easily hit like 120 grams of protein.
yeah.
Like,
Once you have that routine and structure in your diet and you know exactly what you're doing, it might be a bit samey with what you're having, but if it's a case of that you can hit it and stay within your ethical rights of being a vegan, vegetarian, then that's what you need to do. But yeah, I think that's the short answer to that one.
yeah, get a vegan protein powder. That was also what we rounded up from that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
what's the next one then, buddy?
So the next one, this is a bit broad. So someone's put in motivation and discipline to actually do something. So there's no real context there, but I think we know almost what it means in terms of getting to the gym, doing some sort of exercise, sorting their nutrition out. Yeah, you can go first with this one.
Yeah, I mean, should we create an avatar? Should we create a person, and then we'll
Yeah,
we'll talk about how we'd approach it for that person? So let's do it for like a Gen Pop
yeah,
avatar. So we've got Darren. He's never worried about his. Actually, let's call him Dave because Dave lives on Facebook, right? In Facebook groups, just commenting on everything. Dave's never been to the gym. He's never worried about his nutrition, and we'd say in the kind of fitness space, he's pretty uneducated. That's not an insult. That's just an observation. So what I'd be thinking about is, right, what can we do to start the ball rolling and get him some success? And it'd probably be the same for you. You'd pick one area so that you don't completely smother him.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, like overwhelmed with people just starting out is tough. Is the biggest risk and the biggest
Yeah,
risk to like dropping off.
yeah,
So I'd pick one area. It's probably the same for you. Like I'd either pick like the first month or two would be like a training focus, a nutrition focus. I'd probably think about trying to get them to a gym,
yeah,
whilst not trying to change their food too much. And like we spoke about protein, like I'd probably start drip feeding in information about nutrition in the check-in process, in just general conversation, like here's a video I've recorded on this, have a look at
yeah,
this, so that you can generally start to kind of move the needle in the direction that you want, and
yeah,
you're not overwhelming that client. And what we see is once we get some progress, we will often get motivation and buy-in to the goal.
yeah,
Of course, like in the whole initial consultation process, I would be digging deep as to why you have signed up for coaching.
yeah,
What is, I know it gets thrown around a lot, like what is your why and how can we use that to kind of spearhead everything we do? Because
yeah,
if Dave's significantly overweight, that why is going to have to carry him for like maybe a year or maybe even a longer if he mucks up at Christmas. So what is your why and why are we here? Because if we know that, we can always use that to drive our decisions and create that motivation. But the problem with motivation is that it is finite and it will run out. Like
yeah,
you'll wake
yeah,
up one day and you'll be really motivated. Probably in the first month, you'll be like, yes, every day is great. But then like the clocks go back and motivation will drop because it's
yeah,
dark all the time. So what you need to think about is, like you'll probably speak about, is creating habits. And what I say a lot with my athletes is discipline over motivation.
yeah.
Discipline's quite a harsh word. I don't want to like scare any of your demographic and be like,
Yeah. Well, she's actually put motivation and discipline in there. So I'm guessing she's like heard it from coaches on Instagram before and knows that discipline is something you need because sometimes motivation isn't going to be enough. Like you said, you wake up some days, you don't have motivation, it comes and goes. And that's where you need to rely on discipline and your why. But in terms of like you said, someone, a Gen Pop starting off, doesn't really know what to do. Um, in terms of motivation, I would always try and find something they enjoy. If for example, Dave he likes swimming, we can look at doing, okay, get yourself to the pool 3 times per week. It's something you enjoy doing, so you're not going to need motivation to do it. Once he starts doing that for 20 minutes each time, starts obviously increasing his energy expenditure, seeing a bit of fat loss, the motivation will increase, but then it will go again. Obviously, like you said, like you're going to wake up some days, it's going to go. But once you're doing something you actually enjoy, you probably won't need motivation to go and do it because you're usually quite excited to go do it.
100%. Like, we love training, like,
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain. Well, I love training, and it's hard to explain to people who don't love training why I go to the gym every day and just kind of beat myself up. It's like because I enjoy it. So, like you said, if you can match like enjoyment with something that potentially will move the needle, I think like it's a great start. And like we said, once we get that buy-in, and once people start to see like, oh, my actions actually impact this or move me towards this goal, it can be all about kind of empowering that client to see that their actions and their daily actions can actually impact their life. Like, it's a bit deep, but like,
no. Yeah.
And then you can
And
work in that discipline side of things with like non-negotiables. Like, I have non-negotiables with my clients, like I said, like, and we set those out at the start of the phase. So for example, if it's like a dieting phase or a recomposition phase, like, we'll have non-negotiables. They'll probably mostly normally be the same, like daily activity, get 8 hours sleep a night, like things like that. I normally focus on things that we know will impact the individual the most. For example, Dave probably doesn't need to be worrying about his creatine serving just yet. But he does need to be worrying about, right, is he getting like 150 grams of protein minimum per day? Is he getting enough sleep? Because we know that his sleep has been terrible because he's been in the Facebook groups till God knows what time.
I know what I mean. When it comes to jotting down non-negotiables, and you know that if you have a bit of a shit day, but you've hit them, then we're good going into the next day. You don't really need motivation to hit them non-negotiables. Like, as long as they're getting done, don't worry too much about how you're feeling. And then coming back to the whole thing that I was speaking about earlier with people setting New Year's resolutions, like, I'm going to run every day when January 1st hits. The motivation isn't going to be there to do that because most people don't enjoy going for a run every day. It's not something you can wake up. For some people, yeah, but most people, no. It isn't something you wake up and actually look forward to do. So you can't expect to have motivation to go and do that because you don't enjoy it. So
and you're setting yourself up for failure there as well. Like, you're asking a lot of yourself. It's like me saying like, right, I'm just going to go do triathlon training. Like, just go and do it. It's like, you just go and do a bodybuilding show tomorrow. Like, do you know, like, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're not going to do it. So like, it's one of those things. Like, a lot of my guys and girls are highly motivated, and half of the battle for me is getting them to actually relax a bit, because they're kind of so on it. And sometimes it's kind of like, oh, that's why I'm here. Okay. Like, I'm here to support you and hold you accountable. And I think that definitely ties into the motivation and discipline side of things. Is like, we love making excuses for ourselves. Most of us have done it for the majority of our lives. Oh, I'll just have that biscuit, or like, oh, I'm dieting, but like, do you know what I mean? Of course you can have a biscuit and diet, but you get my thought process there. Like, we love making excuses for ourselves. So for some people, outsource that. So your coach, like, you probably speak to your guys all the time, like, I'm your source of accountability, but you are also your source of accountability yourself. We'll work together to make sure, like you said before, like, oh, you've had a bad day, but the 6 other days of the week have been great. You're on track. If you're not on track, I'll probably talk to you about it and we'll work through it. And that's the thing. It's like, if the client doesn't have motivation and discipline, the coach will try and work through it and develop that with them. You're not just
Yeah.
on your own kind of
Yeah.
trying to fight a battle that you don't know the answer to, because it is tough. Like this world, like the little echo chamber I live in, where it's just all about muscle building and losing fat. It's just a weird world, and like
Yeah.
there's a lot of information in there. And like you said, Dave probably doesn't need to know it all just yet. He
No,
just needs to know how to lose that first few kilograms.
definitely. But yeah, I think that's, to be honest, I think that's covered the whole motivation and discipline thing. Like in short, you can't expect to have motivation every day because it's not going to happen. You do have it, I would look to take advantage of it. And when you don't, you need to just trot along and get what you need to get done. And that's obviously sort of the discipline side of
That's the
things.
discipline side of things, yeah.
Yeah. Once you've been doing that for a long period of time, it will then probably turn into a habit and you won't really need to think about it. You won't need motivation to get it done. And if you can enjoy all of that, then bargain.
And if you can't, like, okay, like you might not enjoy it at the start, but I think the main thing is just start and try and start, because you might start going to the gym. You don't like the gym, but it opens up another opportunity of, right, you find a spin class, you love spinning, or you love step, or you love swimming at the gym. It's not just the gym. The gym is not just the gym all the time. Like there is a fitness is so broad, like you can literally do everything from it. So I think just start and then niche yourself, like point yourself in the direction that you want to go in. But yeah, I think we've mullered that one, mate. And is that all your questions ticked off, or we got any more?
Yeah, there was a few more, but to be honest, I only wrote 3 down. Others were like things that, I don't know, just things that I could answer in a story. So I wanted to pick like the 3 that we can go into a little bit more detail about on the pod.
Perfect, mate. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there, buddy, because I think like we've got stuck into some good questions. It's been great having you on. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's Tom Hole PT, the standard PT Instagram name.
Of course.
It's either that or fitness.
Shocking.
Yeah, but yeah, Tom Hole PT on Instagram. That is where you'll find me. That is how you would know how to work with me, to sign up to my emails that I send out, and everything goes through there. I do have a Facebook as well, but to be honest,
we don't want to hang out with Dave on Facebook. I will say, like, Tom's content is like probably some of the most valuable content from a PT that I see on Instagram. Of course, it's like not always my cup of tea because it's kind of wishy-washy, but yeah, like the content, like it's top class. Yeah, a bit too soft. Just don't eat the biscuit, love. But like I wouldn't just say that either, like, because I'm not one for kind of bullshit. But yeah, it's really good content. So like if you kind of are looking kind of to start, if you're a bit more, you've never been to the gym, need some support with that, Tom's your guy. And I think like even if you don't work with him, his content is like invaluable and like covers a great range of fitness and nutrition topics. So his link to his Instagram will be in the show notes below. But before we go, if you are listening on, there's nothing for you, mate. It's just my general.
I was going to get questions.
I could do that, but I just don't know what questions to ask. Oh, do you know what? Let's go for it. All right. I'm going to make these up on the spot, okay? You have to answer just one or the other. Squat or deadlift?
Squat.
Muffin or cookie?
Cookie. I fucking hate muffins. I don't know why.
Muffins are so overrated.
Yeah.
Bagels or toast?
Bagels, 100%.
Honey or jam?
Neither.
Shocking, mate. Jam all day.
Honey. If I was going to go for one, it would be honey. But
what about Bon Mon? Bon Mon jam is absolutely unreal.
Mate, I have no idea.
Thailand too long, mate. You need to get back to Sainsbury's.
I'm in Bali, Thailand.
Oh, same thing, mate. Sorry. Right, next one. What was it? Adidas, Nike.
Nike.
Gymshark or Lululemon?
Lululemon, mate. Banging.
Made of
I don't like
it. Running or walking?
Walking.
Books or podcasts?
Just for the sake of this, I'm gonna have to go podcast, aren't I?
Yeah, good.
I do podcast, but Yeah, like driving along and that podcast.
I think like, yeah, you can just literally, the best thing is you can do two things at once. Like with a
Yeah,
book, I feel like it's very much you need to be in the book.
needs to be
And for
very
someone
involved.
who can't sit still for long enough, saying that though, I did read like 3 books last month. So
3
genius.
books in a month.
Yeah, mate, absolute legend. Small books, they're just children's books, mate. I'm joking. Right, that's just a random segment. But yes, I am just going to finish up by saying, if you are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a review and follow along, and then you'll get updates. But again, thank you for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks
If
for
you
doing
want, no problem, mate. And enjoy your travels. You are living the dream. Hopefully, one day I can be just like you.
this. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.